Hello there one and all, it's Carol here from the Crafty Emporium, bumpty bump. I want to talk to you today about this journal that I've been making, and I want to show you how you can go about adding some pages in here so that if you are storing some of your treasured letters, love letters, or pen pal correspondence or birthday cards that you've received, you can store them in here and then you can write on some paper which I've attached in between each of the envelopes. So I'm going to show you a couple of different options about how you can go about doing that. Now then, I have used this coffee printed paper and I will do a video on how I've done this before anyone asks, can you show me how you did that? So I'm going to show you how to go about using these papers, how to attach them in there, and as I say, I will do a video on how I've actually made these papers. Now the first way in which you can do it is you can actually sew these in. So if you imagine in between this little gully here that we created for our hinge system, you can actually sew a couple of pages within there, all right, and then sew it through the cover just as you would normally. Now I wouldn't add loads and loads of pages, 2 or 3 sheets of paper at the very most, all right. So then you would just fold them in half, find your center point, and then just stitch them into position, all right. Now you can also glue a page in as well, and that's the system that I'm going to use on here. So basically all I did was I got my sheet of paper and turned it over, and then I folded it, and then about 1/8 of an inch from this edge, sorry, about 1/4 of an inch from this edge, I left the space here, okay, and then creased it, and then opened it back out and spun it round. And again, I did the same. I then folded this edge up to about leaving 1/4 of an inch gap at the top and creased it again. So I'm leaving sort of that much space there at the top, okay. And then what you've created is a little tiny spine, yeah, about 1/4 of an inch you've left there. We've created a bit of a flat spine, and I'm going to glue this into the journal. Now the other thing that you can use is elastic. So I could actually wrap some elastic around this part of the journal, and I can do that in each of the places where I want some paper. And this is the one that I've used before, and I have got my Amazon affiliate link in the description box, and I think, yeah, I'm sure I put this in there as well, so that if you can't find it. Now this elastic is actually clear, so let me put some on my hand so hopefully then you can see it. It's a clear elastic and very, very thin. So I could actually wrap some elastic around there and then slot the papers underneath the elastic. By the same token, you could use hat elastic, which is a very thin, round type of elastic, and I would use a black one because I've got a black cover, so I would wrap it entirely around. I mean, there's loads of different options that you could use, so those are just a couple. So you could sew a couple of pages in, you can wrap some elastic around and feed the papers under, but the one that I'm using is this one where I'm going to glue this little spine in. So as I say, I am doing it in between each of the envelopes that I've added where the hinge is, because there's a little bit of space in between there, all right. If you have left enough room, you could do it in between the hinged pages and glue it in this position here, but there's a narrower space in there than there is in here where that spine is from the hinge. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to do a line of glue. If my glue's at the bottom of my, come on, down to the bottom of my nozzle, and I'm going to very, very carefully do a single line, but you could put glue on this spine area here, so you would lay it out flat and then put the glue on in that spine area, and then I'm going to sit that in there. Now my A4 paper is shorter than the actual cover. And then I'm going to just run my finger down there. A little bit too much glue there and there, so we'll wipe that off. And then that will be stuck down inside of there. And then flip it over and press it on the other side. And I've now got an extra page in there that I can do any writing on. So let's say that I've stored some information in here, an envelope, a love letter, a photograph, whatever. I can then write about it on these pieces of paper that I've actually included in my journal. All right, so that's one way of adding the papers, but as I say, you could add some just by sewing them into your journal as well, or using an elastic. So I've now got enough of these pages in here so that I've got now a new journaling space in there, as well as a storage area with the envelopes. The next thing that I want to show you is the policy envelopes that I said I was going to add to act as a pocket so that I can slip something underneath the policy envelope, because I forgot to leave this spine area as a pocket in a previous video. So I'm going to add another one on here, but I need to remember to leave a space here on the edge because I want to be able to punch a hole on there to add some seam binding to it. So here's my policy envelope, which I did cover in video number 3 of how you can go about making them, and some of them, the mathematical way in which you can work out what size you want it to be. If you want to go down that route of working out the mathematics of it, I realise not everyone is into doing the maths, but for those of you that are, I did show in video 3 how to go about working out your size of policy envelopes. Now, the other thing that I've done is I've punched out from some scrap paper some 1-inch circles. If you're using a thin paper, you know, sometimes you get a paper pad and the paper's quite thin, you might need to actually glue a couple of those circles together, all right, to just give it a little bit of extra body and strength. Now, I'm not going to in this instance, I'm just going to go straight for it. So I've got my 2 1-inch circles, and I've already inked around the edges of those, and I've got 2 brass brads as well that I'm going to be using. So I'll put those to one side for a moment, and my spare circles, and then I've got my hole punch, and I know that I want one on the envelope flap, so I'm going to punch that there, and I'm going to punch through both pieces. Just make sure I've got it roughly central, and I'm going to poke through the centre. And then I'm going to put a brad through both of those pieces. Now, I'm not going to pull the brad really tightly because I want a little bit of a space between the circle and the envelope itself. I could flatten this out further and really push it down hard to make it completely flat, but I'm not going to. And then I will cover this over with some of my micropore so that my fingers don't catch on it, or I could place another circle on top of there and then decorate that up if I wanted. Okay, so I've got my first one in place. Now my second one, I'm going to add about here, all right, because I like that sort of distance. Now, the way in which I'm going to attach it, again with the brad, I need to be able to access inside this pocket, because I've got mine made up, to be able to add the brad to it so that I can pull the prongs back. You could actually attach these prior to making up your policy envelope, so then it makes it easier for access. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to poke right the way through the envelope, and that's because I'm attaching this as a pocket, so it won't matter the fact that I've got a tiny hole on the back of the policy envelope, because as I say, I'm attaching this as a pocket. So I'm just going to poke right the way through my envelope, again in the centre, and then I can attach my brad through that hole and then through this hole. Okay, so I have got a tiny hole now on the back. As I say, I'm not worried about that because I am making this into a pocket and it's not going to be visible. Now this is the worst part, is trying to open up those prongs. So bear with me whilst I do this bit. Okay, so that's the prongs now opened up inside, and again I could actually put a piece of micropore inside of there over the top of those prongs, so that whenever I put anything inside it's not going to catch on the prongs there. And then I've got my baker's twine, couldn't think of the word, which I'm going to wrap underneath this first circle, and I'm going to knot it. And I'm going to pull it in tight around the brad. Alright, so the brad will now support that knot. What I can do is I can very carefully lift that up and put a tiny drop of glue on the knot of this baker's twine to prevent that single knot from coming undone. And it needs to be a single knot, because if you do a double knot you'll end up with a load of bulk on top of this circle here. I'm then going to wrap it round in the figure of 8 so that I can work out the length that I want this twine to be, and trim it off there. And that's my policy envelope now all ready to put inside the journal. So I'm going to glue this now on the inside cover. So I want to glue it around 1, 2, 3 sides. And I'm going to use my Tombow glue for this. And make sure you glue it around the correct 3 sides, because there'll be nothing worse than you putting glue down that wrong edge and you've gone and closed your pocket up. Done that before now. Lots of cursing when I did it before. Okay, now I can see here that this is where the front cover closes, so that's the score mark there from where it closes. So I'm going to put it near to, I'm not butting it up, but I'm putting it near to that crease, and I'm lining it up across the top and across the bottom. And then this is quite a textured paper, so it's not giving me an immediate adhesion, so I'm going to put some clips on to hold this in place whilst that glue takes. And as you can see, I've done it far enough away from the edge that I can punch my hole in there to be able to do my closure. And so that's now glued in position there. And then once that glue is set, I'll be able to take those clips off. Now I want to add another journaling area within this book. And so what I did was I bought these A5 sketchbook packs from Hobbycraft. They're 3 to a pack. Okay. And they were quite good value. They're really nice plain papers on the inside. So again, I can write in here, I can decorate it up. Again, I don't want to overfill it with loads of pockets or things like that because it will just bulk it out too much. So this will be used as a journaling space for me to write in, and I can decorate up with pictures, and I can decorate up with washi tape, stamping, stenciling. That sort of decoration will go on here. All right. Now, once the glue has set on this pocket, I can test to see whether that is going to sit inside comfortably underneath this pocket here. Now, I know from one that I tried earlier, it doesn't quite fit. And so what I'm going to do with the back cover is I'm going to trim it down. And so I'm going to cut this off at a slight angle towards where the paper is, and then snip down and just take that little piece of extra card off, so you can see there that I've cut it off at an angle. All right, and I'm going to do the same on the bottom as well. So again, cut it off at an angle and take it down towards where the paper is. Now, I also know as well that the cover itself won't fit right the way down to the bottom because I've got glue here. Now, it fits inside, the whole journal thing fits inside beautifully, but the actual cover itself is not going to fit well enough in for me to be able to sit this in comfortably. So I'm also going to trim a little bit off the end of the cover as well. Now, if I decide at a later date to pull this book out and store it as its own journal, I can decorate the front and the back cover, and I can get rid of this empty space here by adding paper over the outside cover as well as the inside cover to bring it back up to its normal size. And then this will then slide in there quite comfortably. It won't at the moment because I've got the clips on, but that will slide in there quite comfortably. Let's see if I can get it in. Ooh, it will go in. There we go. And that will sit in there lovely. And I've now got a journaling book inside the front cover so that I can utilise that to write in as well. So just to give you a quick flip through of what it's looking like so far. So we've got our journaling book here slotted underneath the policy envelope. Envelopes, some journaling papers, envelope, journaling papers, these envelopes that flip individually, pockets, flippy flappy doodads, another pocket here waiting to be decorated, some more journaling paper, the gatefold, this is waiting for a booklet. Some more journaling paper. That's the acetate band, belly band. And it was funny, I actually noticed this the other day, but someone mentioned it on group. And no, I didn't place her face here intentionally. But if I flipped this open before I put the journaling paper in, it looks as his head is part of her body. I didn't do that intentionally, no. And then some more journaling paper. And then this one I'm not adding any journaling paper into because of it being the double envelopes that I'm going to add the little slippy in, journal booklet that will go in there. And then there's the policy envelope at the back that again is a pocket. So that's where I'm at with this. In the next video, I'm going to show you how I decorate the cover. Add something to the spine, again, to just give it a little bit more support, and the seam binding closure that I'm going to be using. So I'll hopefully see you in the next video. Thanks for joining me today. See you soon. Bye for now.